Welcome to Enlightened, the enlightened journey of life. I am your host, Jen Hamilton, and it is an honor to have you here. I am a conscious life coach and women's empowerment mentor, and I activate a potent level of self and soul inquiry with my clients, which initiates deep and lasting transformation in all areas of their lives. I am here for the full human experience, authentically and audaciously sharing my magic with the world. On this podcast, we're all about mastering life on the way to enlightenment. And as we are here having a human experience, we might as well embrace it all. We play in the space of what is real and tangible, just as much as we play in the space of esoteric and metaphysical. You'll be ignited by deep conversation, whether through my own personal musings, interviews with incredible thought leaders around the world, and everyday divine humans sharing their soulful stories. Thank you for being on this journey. Let's dive in. Hello and welcome to this episode of the Enlightened Podcast. I am your host, Jen, and today I'm joined by Dr. Amber Tichenor. Dr. Tichenor has a Ph.D. in IO psychology and is the founder of 2B Coaching and Consulting. A thought leader on the topic of women's rivalry, Amber has 20 plus years experience as an organizational change strategy and leadership consultant, where she helped guide businesses through transformational change. Her book, Behind Frenemy Lines, Rising Above Female Rivalry to Be Unstoppable Together, published by Morgan James Publishing, is on sale now. Amber's goal is to promote collaboration over competition, to empower women to find their voice, leave the rivalry behind, and team up with a community of like-minded women to support each other to be unstoppable together. I am so excited to have Amber on the show. So without further ado, let's dive in. Welcome, Dr. Amber. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited for our conversation today.
I'm so excited to chat about female rivalry because it's something that is so prominent in so many friendships, workplaces, and obviously you're a coach and consultant in organizations and you run trainings and speak on this topic. Tell us all about female rivalry and what does that even mean?
Well, it means different things to different people. And when I first started my research, there was not a definition about it out there. So I made up my own, and it's female rivalry is when one woman minimizes another woman so they both feel smaller than they really are. Female rivalry hurts individuals, teams, and organizations. And frequently when I'm talking or giving a training, I'll get a hand up in the air like, well, I understand why one woman feels small because she's the target of this awful behavior, but why do both women feel small? And my response and my thought is, when I came up with that definition, is that you have to feel small to project that type of behavior onto somebody else. So in this type of behavior, I don't think there is any winner. So when I first started doing research on this topic, I stumbled upon it. I did it for my Ph.D. dissertation, and I'm an organizational psychologist, so I had to write about a problem I saw in the working environment, and I knew I wanted it to be about women. And so then I saw this occurring, and I call it the elephant in the boardroom. It was people were tiptoeing around the behavior, but it didn't just impact the women that were involved in the behavior. It everybody felt it because it was awful to witness and you could just feel it. And so good women were walking the organization out of the organization. And also bad behavior was being rewarded because the woman that initiated the behavior ultimately stayed. So in a roundabout way, that answered your question about what it is, but I think for so many people it means very different things. There's many layers of it. It's not necessarily a black and white behavior, and it can be very hard to see at times because it's so passive aggressive and intangible.
Wow, thank you so much, and I love that you've articulated that so well. And how did you get into this work? What was it that led you on this path?
So I saw it happening as I said, when I was writing about it. And then I collected these stories and I was blown away. It was awful. I just thought, how can such an awful behavior be made fun of, or people call it a cat fight, or women being dramatic. And when these women were sharing their stories, I just thought there's so much more to this. And until that time, I'd had, little bits of it happen to me, on and off in college, or maybe even younger, and even as an adult, but I hadn't had a full blown rivalry experience. So I kept collecting stories, and I realized too, it doesn't just happen at work. It just happens, unfortunately, to a lot of women in general. So I'm collecting all these stories. I left the job I was in. I moved, had kids, got married, started a new position, and I was consulting again. And I was dealing with a woman that, to say the least, she was an unsavory character. She was awful. And I thought, okay, I need a job change. I couldn't quite place what was going on. I would communicate with her and put it back on me. How can we improve our relationship? We both have the same end goals, but it was just awful. I started to dread when I would wake up on Sunday morning. I dread going to work the next day. I'd have a pit in my stomach. And one day I was driving to work, and my mom said, we were chatting on the phone, and she said, I hate to see how you doubt yourself, all because of this woman. And I went, oh, I'm in it. I'm in it. This is what I interviewed these women about, and now it's happening to me. And so I went in and I quit. And that's how my business came about, because really what cut me to the core was, if I'd studied it as in depthly as I had and collected all these stories, but yet it's happening to me and I didn't see it and I couldn't name it, what's it doing to women who don't have this knowledge? So I'm like, it needs to be talked about, because women, we should be supporting and advocating and empowering each other, not tearing each other down.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, why? Why does this happen? Why do women act this way towards each other?
There are many reasons why. It could be, maybe how you're raised, maybe a prominent female in your life, you're mirroring what you saw her behavior. Maybe it's the need for control. Maybe there is true jealousy or envy. Maybe you're in a situation where there's perceived no room at the top, so you feel like you have to fight your way for it. But ultimately, I truly think in my heart, and from the stories and the research I've conducted, is women who love themselves love other women. And so if you are not comfortable in your own skin, if you don't love who you are as a person, it's going to be very hard to love other people. So I think that's initially what it all stems from. Sure, that you might be have a low self-esteem, or you might want control, or this or that, but ultimately you have to be comfortable with who you are, because women who love themselves love other women. And that, I think, is the root of the problem as to why. So with lots of other little things involved too.
Yeah, absolutely. If someone's in a situation, so let's speak into the workplace. If
Yeah.
someone is in a situation where they're being bullied or being, treated less than,
Yeah.
by another woman, what are some of the signs that they can start to look for? Like you mentioned, like you didn't even realize that you were in it until you're in the thick of it, and then someone pointed out, the way it was reflecting in your behavior.
Yeah.
What is it that people can look for?
So I think, first off, I do know from all the women I've talked to, and even in my own situation, when you're in it, it's very hard to talk about it, because the behavior is very often intangible. Often it won't be done in front of other women. It might be behind closed doors. It might first start with a comment. And I'll say, well, why would Jen say that to me? I didn't do anything to her. And then you might think, oh no, I imagined it. She wouldn't do that to me. So you'll begin to second guess yourself. So over time, if it's a continuing behavior, you'll begin to be worn down. And especially if you are at work, and if this woman has control of your pay or your projection in the workplace, your promotion path, there's could be a level of fear associated with that. So you might not know how to respond or stick up for yourself. So, and if you're new, maybe you are a younger person just coming into this job, and maybe she's an older person, and then there's the age thing, and there's so many different nuances to it. But I think always know your truth and where you stand. And if somebody makes you feel less than or uncomfortable, there are ways to bring it up, without, did you mean to make me feel that way? Or maybe I misunderstood what you said. Can you please clarify? Maybe when you start to call things out a little bit, that lets the other person know that you see what they're doing. If it continues, if it's ever done in front of a group too, I'm also a big advocate of humor. Like, you can make a joke of something where it lets the other person know, okay, I'm joking about it now, but yeah, actually I see what you're doing and it's not cool. So, I'm calling you out on it nicely.
Yeah. And so for any of our listeners that are out there that have businesses and that have teams working underneath them and can see this playing out within their staff or within their team, what is some of the things that they can do to, nip it in the bud?
Well, I think uh, you have to have a psychologically safe work environment. So you have to have an environment where people feel 100% that they are accepted who they are. And they can, then there's no fear. You can raise your hand and say, I feel safe. I'm okay to be vulnerable. I know that when I do raise my hand, I can know that I'll be heard and listened and supported. So that's key. So if you do have this going on in your environment, I think the first and most important thing is to have that established open communication. And with that, the no tolerance rule. You're not going to accept this behavior. So maybe it's a one strike, maybe it's a no strike, but it's no. I think it should be implemented in the bullying behavior, that because when this is ongoing, it definitely is a form of bullying. I think you can also have bystander training. So where everybody kind of knows what's going on, and maybe you have code words, but where it's a safe place to stick up for somebody and know that you also won't be the recipient of the ugly behavior. Unfortunately, that's not often the case, and so often it's simply not talked about, which is back to the elephant in the boardroom. People tiptoe around it because work is also your livelihood, and it's where you make your money. And so that adds a whole level of, it's a burden, or on top of already an ugly behavior. So it can be very hard to talk about it at work. And if you're seeing it, you don't know maybe who you can trust to reach out to for help.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. It's so interesting, isn't it? Because I've worked in so many different workplaces. I've had many different jobs in my working, when I was in the corporate lifestyle
Yeah.
many moons ago. And, I saw it, at times, I was actually subject to it by head of HR.
Oh my
And so
Lord.
there was actually nowhere else to
Mm.
go from there. There was nowhere else to go, unfortunately. And so that made things a little bit difficult. And I think it was after I went on maternity leave, this particular person had left. And then
Yeah.
I was subject to it again, though, from a male in the workplace. And I ended up just resigning. There was nowhere else to go,
Yeah.
which is really disappointing because I loved my job and I loved the work that I did. And it was a company, I'm not going to mention the name of it, but it was a
No.
company that is very, very well known and
Mm-hmm.
very active in women's rights. And,
Uh,
it was a
oh,
very interesting experience to see what happens behind closed doors of some of these, these bigger corporate companies.
yeah.
Um, and it's so funny. My partner always says a dead fish stinks from the head down.
It
Um,
says. I like that one.
yeah, and so like when it's happening from the top, there's nowhere to go. Are you the type of person, I guess it's probably situational, but would you say to women that are in this space in the workplace, would you say, look, make sure you're talking to someone about it? Would you, do you just encourage them, like, if you're not happy, find another job where you are happy? What's sort of the general process for women?
Well, One thing I always say is to keep your resume updated so you aren't pigeonholed in a place, because sometimes looking for a job can be a full-time job. So, in fact, not sometimes, most of the time. So, if first and foremost, because this behavior is often so very intangible and it's hard to explain if you can't formulate what it is, or if you're going off your gut. And it sounds crazy, but some of it is your gut feeling. You know when somebody doesn't like you or if somebody has it out for you. But if you have to go to HR and explain that to them, well, they're going to say, show me proof. So when you first do start to see it, document, document, document. Begin to write down what's occurring, because after time, you are going to see the story and the pattern will reveal itself. That is first and foremost. Look at who you can trust. So you mentioned, which is so unfortunate with HR, but I've heard that story before where women have said, I went to HR and they basically told me I was the one that was the problem, or they didn't trust me, or they were targeting me. So it's knowing who you can trust, which goes back again. If you are and like you said, as much as you loved your job and the environment you are in, and they're portraying one thing for women's rights, but when you're in the thick of it, it's not a psychologically safe environment. You have to really evaluate what you want. I mean, look at how much time you spend at work. So I'm not advocating that you just go out and find a new job or quit, but you need to know who has your back, and who will support you when you are in that environment. And if you can't find somebody, then that's a big red flag. That tells you
Mm.
what the culture is like. And it's so hard to assess a culture before you go into an organization, but as much as you can do your homework and talk to people who work there, or people who may have left, and really get the skinny on something, that can help you. But if you initially talk, I'm an advocate of too, okay, try to talk to the woman, like maybe go have a coffee, step out of the work environment, and maybe go take a walk, have a coffee or something. Say, hey, how can we work better together? Because sometimes maybe there are cultural differences. Maybe you were raised differently, and so you might come at it, just be approaching things from very different views. Maybe not, though. So there are different little tricks you can do, but you really do have to evaluate, for as much time as you spend there, is it worth it? Like what you did, and like what I did too. I just was done. I was reactive though when I quit, and not everybody has that luxury to just leave.
That's so true, isn't it? And like you mentioned, like this is people's livelihoods here. They're,
Yeah.
especially if they're in a position where there aren't other jobs available in their
Yeah.
field, and they've done all this training, they've done all this study,
Yeah.
or perhaps they're working towards a goal of long service leave, or any of those things. It's
Yeah.
not. I know, I completely understand. It's not easy to do. Oh, okay, I'll just leave, or I'll just ask
No.
for a transfer or something. Sometimes it's just not possible. So I like the option of possibly having that conversation outside of the workplace.
Yeah.
If you're someone witnessing this in the workplace, say for example you're witnessing someone being bullied and they're like, no, I'm not going to tell anyone about it, and
Yeah.
you can see that it's drastically affecting their behavior and how they show up to work and the actual work that they're doing. If you're the witness of it, what is the best thing that you can do to support that person?
I think first, I would talk one-on-one with the individual who's being targeted. Say, I'm seeing what's going on. I'm here for you. Let them know you are their ally and you're there to support them. Um, and then ask them what you can do to help them. I think that's first and foremost. So you're not just, going right over them, but, if somebody says, nothing, I have this, yet you continue to see it, at that point, I would escalate it, because it's impacting you. If again, like when I gave my story of the elephant in the boardroom and everybody's walking on eggshells, when that behavior becomes more out in the open, it's not just to the two people that are involved. It trickles out. It's a domino effect. Likewise, if you are experiencing at work, you're not leaving that behavior at work. It goes home with you. It impacts every segment of your life. And so if the person who's on the receiving end maybe is slowly beaten down, and from Jen, this is the crazy thing. All the stories I've ever gotten, every woman who's experienced this said they feel alone when they experience it. I did. I couldn't voice it. And so when you're alone, you feel alone and you can't voice what's going on. If somebody can be an advocate for you, I think that's the most wonderful thing, because they can help you get out or help you maybe step away and see truly what's going on if you are beaten down and can't see it yourself. So I first, though, would talk to the person, because just to let them know you're there, maybe they'll say, yes, please, I need help.
Yeah, beautiful. I want to circle back to your experience that you had in this
Yeah.
space. And then once you realized what was going on, what was the process that you went through to overcome it? And how long did that take you?
You know what? When I really realized it and I went in that day and quit, I felt like this instant relief, like this relief. But then also, it took a while. It took a few months. And I will honestly tell you what helped me truly understand it more, which is crazy, because I've, here for the past few years, I'd been collecting all these stories from women about their experiences from all over, social, family, primarily a lot were in the workplace. But I started sorting back through their stories, because at that point I was thinking, okay, let me lump them together. I was thinking about writing my book. And that's when it hit me. And I was like, oh my God, here I was. So I call it the one of the best worst experiences I could have had. I think I needed it in some ways to be this subject matter expert about it. But I thought, by these women sharing their stories before I had experienced it myself, that I knew everything. But no, I think I needed to truly feel that rock bottom to know what it was like. And so their stories helped heal me, because I really could relate. I think I reread them with new eyes, and I was like, oh my gosh, she did that to me. And then I'd read another one. Well, and that happened. And so I had all these like revelations that it was so crazy. I couldn't see when I was in it, but rereading the stories that I'd already once read before, it helped me heal. And I'm just very passionate about it, because it's tragic to me that women will tell me I will never work for another woman again. I will never work on an all-female team. I don't have true women friends because I don't know who I can trust. And I'm like, that breaks my heart. Like, women are half of the population in the world. And if you feel that you don't have women by your side, it's tragic.
Yeah, it's that deep witch wound, isn't it? Like it dates
Yes.
back
Yeah.
a very, very, very long time. And it's always been, especially in our lifetime, it's always been within women, that we have to be in competition with each
Yeah.
other. And I think, as we bring awareness to these ways of being, we can actually step into that space of collaboration. Um,
100%. Oh,
yeah, and it
yes.
can happen in friendship dynamics as well. I actually had a friend last year who I thought was my friend and, acted like a friend. And I then had information come through from another friend that she was after, things within my business and clients and stuff. And it was like, wow, really? Like she put on a good show, that's for sure. Like to lie to my face and like literally turn up to my house and get information about how I run certain things in my business, right in front of me, right in front of my partner. I was like, wow, that was actually really ballsy. And
Ballsy,
then,
but the sense of betrayal is
yeah,
horrific.
yeah, massively, massively. And I'm lucky that I've got, the work that I do, as a coach, I saw it
Yeah.
eventually. And my partner even says, did you just realize what happened there? I was like, oh no, it's fine. Abundance for all. Everything's all good. And yeah, it wasn't until someone else said, oh, hey, this person's doing this. And I thought, oh, okay, time to go.
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry you experienced it. Yes, friendship, it happens in families, social groups. It's rare when I'm giving talks, I'll have women, I'll ask like 10 questions, like raise your hand if you've experienced this and raise your other hand if you've experienced this. Well, if both hands are raised, stand up. It is rare that not at least one hand is raised.
Mm,
Often most women are standing, and I've done a lot of work too with mother and daughter groups. And I remember when it was a group of teenagers, and I kind of did the same questioning thing, and they were all in a circle. And then the moms were on the perimeter of the room. And I just was watching the look on some of the moms' faces, like the complete shock. Like, it's happened, like they were so baffled that it was already occurring. And I remember when my daughter was in kindergarten, I was shocked, but I thought I had at least until middle school. And nope. it it's at all ages, unfortunately. And you don't want to feel like every woman is out to get you, or you have to watch your back. I'm completely of your mindset. I'm trusting and abundance. Like, I'm happy to share what I have with other people, but I don't know. There are some people that are takers.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting that you mentioned the daughter thing because I have a daughter and she's 8
Yeah.
years old and I've seen it already in school, and she
Uh,
goes to a like an independent school, so it's a little bit different
yep.
from mainstream.
Yep.
And here I am thinking, oh no, like the behavior that patterns will be
Yep.
different, and it's really not. Like, it's still got the little clicky groups, and
Yes.
some of them are just little bitches.
They are. They're fully bitchy. And you think, so my first debate with my daughter was in kindergarten, and she was mentioning things that were happening on the playground. And I went, no, that is, at that age, that is not an intrinsic behavior. That is a behavior that's being mirrored from
That's learned
somebody
behavior.
in
Hmm.
their life. And so, we sat down and had, so one of our biggest conversations ongoing now with both of my kids is, it sucks to be on the receiving end of this type of behavior. It feels awful. You feel like you are, 1 inch big, but you absolutely have no control over somebody else's behavior. But what you always, always, always have control over is your own, and that includes how you respond to it. So, I certainly don't want my kids or anybody else to be walked all over, where somebody knows they can just do whatever. But so you have to have your own voice and have your sense of boundaries, but you can walk away, you can ignore. There are different, you can practice the pause. There are different things you can do to not stoop to their level, because I think sometimes people, if they're really truly mean and a bully, they want the engagement with it.
That's so true, isn't it? And like you said, it's a learnt behavior. There was a
Yes.
girl in my daughter's class who I think she was maybe nearly 7 at the time, so
Yep.
young. And my
Babies.
my daughter was having a birthday party, and she didn't want this particular girl there because they'd been
Yeah.
on and off friends basically for the whole year.
Yeah.
And so she, sent out the invitations. This other girl hadn't been invited, and my daughter was really comfortable with that.
Hmm.
But then this other little girl said, "Oh, your mum told me that I could come to your birthday party." And my daughter felt so betrayed by me. And it was a day that she was actually going back to her dad's place. So she didn't see
Yeah.
me for a couple of days.
Oh no.
And she's like, "Mum, did you tell this girl that she could come to my party? Why would you do that?" I said, "No, I haven't said anything. I haven't seen this girl." And the poor thing, she was just so confused. I was like,
Oh,
for like a 6, 7-year-old, where did
yeah.
that come from? Like, that was just appalling.
It She witnessed it, or and it's awful. I had something not long ago with my daughter. It's older, she's 14, and she had friends over for her birthday. And I'm like, at this, when they were younger, it might have been more of the group, but now she picks her friends. I mean, if there's somebody that's a big red flag, I would step in. But somebody that she's not friends with got wind of it and then blocked her on all social media. And the thing is, which I have never told this mother, is a year ago, this same girl posted a picture of friends from our neighborhood and blocked out my daughter's face and said, "These are my real friends." So, that
Mhm.
was the instigator of why their friendship has changed. But I just didn't, I was trying to let them handle it, because I know when parents step in, we're going to remember it a lot more than our kids will. The next day they'll go back to playing together. But I kept that little tidbit, just, and at some point I'll have that conversation, but it can get ugly.
Mm. As parents, should we be stepping in?
I, I think it's the age, and I think it's the phase. Like, It depends. I think every situation is different. I right now try not to step in unless she comes and asks for my help. But, when they were younger and we could, go in the classroom and maybe we knew a lot of the parents more, or if it was happening in the neighborhood. But now a lot of our friends, I don't know their parents one on one. And, they're at the age where they're finding their voice, they're understanding who they are, they're developing their own uniqueness. And I want her to have that voice for her, not from me stepping in and, telling her what to do. So I think situations will vary. If it is a bullying where it's, one and done is different, it still hurts. It's ugly behavior. But if it's a true bullying situation, yes, I think you bring in the people that are necessary to help, combat that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's so important to empower our daughters, from as early
Yes.
as we possibly can to have that voice, to speak up for themselves, to say, this is not appropriate. This is not okay. This is how I feel. Can you
Yeah.
please stop? Or I'm stepping away, or I
Yeah.
need help. I need support through this.
To have your voice, to also, going back to what we talked about, if you see it happening at work, this can be in any situation, to also have a voice to stand up for others. Because, in that tween years, the teen years, it's hard to, if you're wanting to fit in with the crowd or whatever, to stand out. But I say stand out all you want. That is wonderful. It's beautiful. And yes, have your own voice and be who you are.
Yeah, absolutely. It's such a big one, isn't it?
Yeah.
If someone's listening to this and they're thinking, oh, I'm the drama, I'm the bully, I'm the one that's giving other people grief, and they're
Yeah.
just sort of thinking to themselves, perhaps, they're having a bit of a realization, like maybe I haven't been as lovely as I can
Mhm.
be. Maybe I've been an outright bitch to other people.
Yeah.
Where to from here for them?
First off, please give me a call. I would love to understand your thoughts a little bit more on that. But I think, I think we've all been there at some point. I think anybody who says they haven't been the bitchy girl at some point is not maybe being totally truthful with themselves. I can't recall anything in specific, but I know in high school or different stages in my life, I've been there and I've done that. I've done that. Am I proud of it? No. But going back to women who like themselves like other women, I think you have to really be mindful and look inward. So I call it, that voice that will be talking in the back of your head. And I call it your inner she bully. So when you have your inner she bully talking, you have to shut her down. And that is, be mindful of your own actions, practice the pause, and then really look inward. Do you like who you are as a person? Because that, again, is the core foundation for why this behavior occurs. You have to like who you are, you have to love being in your own skin. And is that a 24/7? No. I mean, we all have moments when we have bad days or this or that, but as a whole, it's loving who you are. So, I think, if you're unhappy in your own skin, you're not going to find happiness in other people. You have to work on that first for yourself.
I love that. Dr. Amber, tell us about the book you've written.
So, thank you. I wrote a book called Behind Frenemy Lines: Rising Above Female Rivalry to Be Unstoppable Together. So, it's a collection of these amazing stories that these women have so bravely shared with me that I feel honored to relay their stories. Um, it really highlights what it is and the different situations and the ways it can occur. How it's not really a black and white behavior. There are many, many nuances, lots of shades of gray in it. And then I talk about how to overcome it and what you can do to foster better female relationships. And throughout each chapter, there are questions. So it's like a little workbook too in the midst of it. It's available via audio and also in print version and digital.
Beautiful. And we will definitely link to that in the show
Thank you.
notes. Is there any other words of wisdom that you would like to impart on our audience before we go?
I think the one thing, going back to, if you are going through this and if it is something that you can vocalize, do so. You need a support system because it breaks my heart that women say they feel so alone and that, they don't have friends or these support systems. I mean, scientific studies have been done that women truly need each other. Like, you release oxytocin and all these wonderful chemicals by being together, and just know that you aren't alone. I think it feels lonely because it's an ugly behavior and it's an isolating behavior, but there are women out there that uplift and empower. And sometimes it takes work to find your right group or your right circle or your right tribe. But, I liken it to dating. I dated my partner, my husband, and you can date your friendships to find your right fit. So that's what I would leave with you. Know you are not alone, and that there are women out there that will give you what you give them in return.
I love that. That's so beautiful. Thank you so much for coming on and having a chat with me today. And thank you for the incredible work that you do and sharing your message. It's so important to have these conversations and to feel empowered to have a voice and move through this female rivalry.
Thank you so much for having me. And I've enjoyed our conversation.
Thanks, Dr. Amber. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode. I hope you love the Enlightened podcast, and the biggest compliment you can give me is subscribing to this podcast, sharing it, and leaving a rating and review. Feel free to follow me on Instagram. My handle is @JenHamiltonOfficial, and the podcast handle is enlightened_podcast. You can also find the video version on YouTube on my channel. Just search Enlightened and don't forget to hit subscribe. Have a beautiful day and enjoy living the enlightened journey of life.